You're tuned in to More Living with Jim Brogan, broadcast live from the Brogan Financial Studios at News Talk 98.7, where old-fashioned values, expert knowledge, and genuine understanding come together to give you the retirement straight talk you deserve. Jim's a former National Advisor of the Year recipient and a financial educator, and he's here today to talk about how you can live out the best years of your life. Jim and the Brogan Financial team have been helping retirees and pre-retirees across the Southeast for over 20 years in their pursuit of financial independence. You can reach them during the week at 865-862-6800. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn, because More Living with Jim Brogan starts now.
Hello, East Tennessee. Welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and in a world where tax laws are constantly evolving, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act this year, and if it is extended, because it is set to expire at the end of this year. We go back to the system from 2017. Understanding how to navigate the complexities of tax-efficient retirement planning is not just smart, it's really essential. Today's retirees face very unique challenges, managing multiple income streams, to adapting to new tax legislation, and leveraging technology for smarter tax planning. Whether you're approaching retirement or already there, or you have a strategic approach to tax planning, can mean the difference between watching your wealth slowly erode and maintaining a thriving retirement lifestyle. So we're going to dive into strategies today. And, when it comes to tax planning, one size does not fit all. Each generation faces unique challenges, but then also unique opportunities in creating tax-efficient retirement income. So today, I want to explore how different age groups can optimize their tax strategy while building a robust retirement income stream for later on. Somebody who is a baby boomer today, and if you think about it, baby boomers, the youngest baby boomers now are 60 years old. They turned 60 last year. And so, baby boomers overwhelmingly are retirement age. You might be not quite 65, but most are around retirement age. And now you've got Generation Xers, which is my generation. I'm 55. Generation Xers now going all the way up to, to 58, 59 years old. And then, of course, millennials and post-millennials, we have different spending habits. We have different priorities. I think looking at those generational differences and looking at opportunities can be really, really powerful. So, baby boomers are facing unique challenges with required minimum distributions. Overwhelmingly, people at retirement age that are already there now, the baby boomers, have most of their wealth or a lot of their wealth in their retirement accounts. And all that money has to be taxed, and you have to start taking it out at age 73 if you were born before 1960. If you were born 1960 or later, you have to start taking distributions at 75 because they're taxed as ordinary income. And so and you've also got Social Security taxation, taxes on Social Security income. And I know that's something Trump is talking about eliminating. I have a hard time seeing that. That would cause Social Security to run out of money even earlier than it already is projected to. Interestingly enough, a surprising 45% of baby boomers prefer preserving their wealth rather than strategic distribution. In other words, they're so focused on preserving wealth and being careful not out to live their wealth that they're hesitant to spend, they're hesitant to explore tax strategies. We're in a very low income tax environment in 2025. And if I showed you a chart of the history of income taxes, it would show you that since 1986, we have been in an historically low tax environment for federal income tax. Now, I know it doesn't seem like that because we're taxed every time we turn around. We pay a state tax or a local tax or some other federal tax. In terms of federal income tax, we're in a low environment compared to where we've been. So there are opportunities to maybe pay taxes now and not have to pay taxes later. So baby boomers are wired, though, to reduce, to preserve. And an upfront tax cost today can sometimes be a little bit intimidating. I will say some people cannot afford to do things like Roth conversion. There's too much of a tax hit in those early years of retirement. But many retirees should be looking at Roth conversion strategies to get monies out of IRAs, pay the tax now, and be tax-free forever. Now then, Generation X, which is my generation, we're in our peak earning years, right? We're entering our peak earning years, and tax bracket management and saving in retirement accounts can become very crucial with our tax planning. And then millennials have the longest runway for tax advantage growth. They've got the longest period of time to take advantage of tax strategies. And so Roth becomes increasingly vital for their retirement planning. Now let's talk about historic strategic planning opportunities. First off, if you're 50 or older, you can put up to $31,000 in a retirement account, tax deductible. And if we're in our peak earning years, we can do that as we're earning a lot more income than we probably will make in retirement. So we're deferring those taxes to a later day. Now, if you're under age 50, then you can do $23,500 in your 401k or other retirement account. Now, there's a special provision that went into place this year. If you are, at the end of 2025, if you're between 60 and 63 years old, you can do more than $31,000 in your retirement account at work. You can actually do $34,750. So that kicked in this year from a law. The Secure Act was passed a few years ago. So now tax bracket considerations are also critical to approach as we understand potential tax legal changes. I think what do I mean when I say tax bracket planning? It's fundamentally important to understand our tax system is a marginal tax system. And I'll kind of start it with this comment. The first $50,000 or $100,000 of earned income that you make, you pay the same amount of income tax on that as Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, because that's the first $50,000 or $100,000 of income. See, the way our system works, of course, we have the standard deduction, which in 2025 is $15,000 for a single filer, $30,000 for married filing joint. If you're 65 or older, it's $33,200. That's a remarkable tax, standard deduction number. Okay, so the first $30,000 that we make, if we're joint filer, we don't pay income tax on, right? Because it's deducted. Now then I've got the number here for a married filer, the next $23,850 we make is taxed at 10%. I pay that same 10% rate as Warren Buffett, as do you. Then when you get up over $23,850, only the amount over that number is then taxed at 12%. So if you have taxable income of $26,000, you don't pay 12% on all of it. You pay 10% on the first $23,850. So that's fundamentally important to understand because, as of right now, the 12% tax bracket for a married filer goes all the way up to right at just under $97,000. And that's taxable income. So you add $30,000 on top of that for the standard deduction. Well, that's a lot of income you could make and either be at 0 or 10 or 12% income tax rate. Now, if you go up over $97,000, only the portion over the $97,000 is taxed at 22%. So it's fundamentally important to understand tax bracket planning. Now, how would you do that? Well, so for example, if I'm in that 12% bracket, maybe I'm 68, and I know at age 73 I'm going to have to start taking taxable distributions from my IRA that I don't have to take right now. And maybe once I get there, if I have a pretty large retirement account, if I have $1.5 million in my retirement accounts, I'm going to have to take out about $60,000 a year taxable income. It's about 4%. It's not exact. There's a formula, but just figure 4%. It's easy math. So if you have $2 million in your IRA, that's $80,000 you have to take out and pay income tax on. So, I could be in a 12% bracket today at age 67 or 68, but I know when I'm 73, even if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is extended, I'm going to be up in that 22% bracket. So maybe I want to think about doing Roth conversion, and I want to go all the way up and fill up that 12% tax bracket. Well, I don't want to worry about going over. I want to fill up that 12% and take advantage of that. So in other words, if I go $1,000 over into the 22% bracket, I only pay 22% on that $1,000 that I went over. Not too damaging. So when we do things like Roth conversion planning, when we talk about tax bracket planning, that's what we're talking about. Now, the 24% tax bracket goes all the way up for a married filing joint. Goes all the way up to taxable income of over $394,000. And when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires, or if they extend it and then expires in 2034, we won't see that. We won't see being able to have $350,000 to $390,000 of income and having our marginal rate be a 24% rate. Now, then you've got to look at if you're making that kind of money, if you're making $300,000 or $350,000 or $400,000 a year, you've got to look at what will be your income in retirement. Now, if it's still going to be pretty high, it might make sense to fill up the 24% tax bracket on Roth conversion. So all of these things are fundamentally important. Now, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about multi-generational things and how different age groups should be thinking about tax planning. So stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living. You're listening to News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm Jim Brogan. You can catch us every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. and again from 3 to 4 p.m. We're talking about 2025 strategic tax planning windows. And I did mention in that prior segment, you can put in $23,500 a year tax deductible to your 401k or other retirement account. And of course, somebody who's age 50 and up by the end of the year can put in $31,000. But the thing that kicked in just for this year, if you will be at the end of the 2025, if you'll be between 60 and 63 years old, you can put in a whopping $34,750 in your company plan and have it be tax deductible. Now, another great opportunity is to just consider the impact of healthcare cost projections and to understand the triple tax whammy you get with HSA. If you have an HSA eligible plan, then you can save money in an HSA. The money goes in tax deductible, so it comes off this year's income taxes. The money grows tax deferred, so as it's invested and growing, you're not paying tax on it. And then if it comes out for eligible health care expenses, it's tax free. It's like you're getting the best of the Roth and traditional IRA all in one. Great way to accumulate money. Okay? So maximizing, and especially for younger folks, in medical bills are going up at double the rate of inflation. And that's been happening for a pretty good while. So for our younger generations, if you have an HSA eligible plan, that is a great opportunity to accumulate wealth. Now, you then use that money for health expenses, but segment it. You're going to have a deductible and out-of-pocket maximum. You don't need to have $30,000 sitting in a money market in your HSA. You're not going to need that much money in one time. So some of that money can be invested with a longer-term view. Now, then I mentioned in that first segment, we want to talk about multi-generational tax optimization. Strategic income bracketing, where I talked about understanding where we go into new brackets and how that works. It allows families to maximize lower tax brackets across generations while minimizing the overall family tax burden. Now, this may or may not be important to you. As I said, baby boomers are hesitant to spend tax money now on something like a Roth conversion because of the upfront tax cost. How many years does it take to recoup that tax cost? There's no question in my mind, if you have kids, somebody's going to get the benefit of that conversion. But you'd say, well, I'm not in it for the kids. I gave my kids great opportunities in life. I want to maximize my retirement. And that's a legitimate thought. Okay? I think you have to look at how likely is it you'll be leaving wealth behind. How important is how that works. Some people it is very important on how they leave money behind. I'd say the most common answer that I get from people, good folks that come to my college classes or come into my office, say, Jim, we'd like to leave our kids money, but take care of us first. And then if we can leave them something, that's great. Well, then how likely is that, and what are the tax implications for them? Because remember, if you don't take money out of your IRA or 401k, then your kids will have to. And they pay income tax on it at their tax bracket. They may be in their peak earning years. So all of that stuff's important to understand. Also, asset location. What do you have invested in a Roth versus a traditional IRA or 401k versus a taxable account? We have 3 different kinds of accounts we can save in generally from a tax perspective. Tax-free, which is a Roth. You get no tax benefit going into the Roth, but then it's tax-free growth if you keep it for 5 years and then you take it out after 59 and a half. Now then there's tax deferred. That's like an IRA or 401k. You get a tax deduction when the money goes in. As it grows, you're not paying taxes. You're deferring the taxes to a later date, all the investments and all that. But then when you have to take it out, you have to pay ordinary income tax eventually. And then there's taxable money. You have an invested account and a brokerage account. Whenever there's an interest payment, a dividend payment, a capital gain distribution, or if you sell something at a gain, you get a 1099 and you got to report that on your tax return and potentially impacts your taxes. So one of the challenges with tax planning is we're shooting at moving targets. I mean, we know where we are now. We know what our tax system is for 2025, but we don't even know where we'll be next year with the changes in Washington, much less where we'll be in 10, 15, 20 years. So we're shooting for moving targets. So I like to really think about maximizing all 3 of these buckets and then being smart about how we invest. It's important to understand that anything that comes out of an IRA or 401k or other retirement account is taxed as ordinary income. You do not get the benefit of the treatment of long-term capital gains. And long-term capital gains across the board are, for almost all taxpayers, much better than ordinary income tax rates. The problem is most people have their more growth-oriented investments that they want to get good capital appreciation. They want that stock to go up, or they're in a growth mutual fund. They don't get the capital gains benefit of that. I mean, I can't tell you how often I have people come into my office and they've got all their growth assets in their retirement accounts. And then in their non-retirement accounts, they've got CDs and treasury funds and high yield savings and things like that. But they don't. That's all taxed as ordinary income. So they're not taking advantage of the preferential tax treatment of long-term capital gains. So tax location, we should have growth assets. First and foremost, should be in a Roth. Because of the things that we want to grow over long periods of time, we want that to be tax-free. Now then, tax deferred is great, but we also would like, especially when you're in your peak earning years and you're getting ready for retirement, if you don't have much non-IRA, non-401k investment, you want to try to start building up some of that with growth investments that you're expecting the price to appreciate, so that down the line you can get the preferred tax treatment of long-term capital gains. It's maybe the most overlooked thing that I see in tax planning today. So it's tax location. Where do you put certain investments in terms of the account type, and why does that matter? It's very critically important. Obviously, family gifting strategies can leverage annual exclusions. You can now give $19,000 per year to your child, or to anyone for that matter. Now, a married couple can do twice that. So a married couple can do $38,000. So if my wife and I wanted to gift to my daughter and her fiance after they're married, because they're married, we could actually collectively give 38 and 38 for a total of $76,000 with no gift taxes. Okay, now we don't get a deduction, but the kids don't have to pay income tax on it. So looking at family gifting strategies, and something I'm going to talk about in the next segment is as we get younger into Gen X and especially into millennials, more and more people do want to be sharing their wealth. And they want to see an impact on the lives of their kids while they're alive and their grandkids. If your kids don't get anything till they're 70, there's the argument is how's it really help them? Now, people are going to have different feelings on that. Our listeners today may be kind of split on that. But bottom line is, we want to be cognizant of how we impact lives. And then we can also structure charitable giving techniques to take advantage of benefiting multiple generations while maximizing tax advantages. And there are specific things we can be doing, especially if we have highly appreciated assets. We can do a capital gains elimination trust. You can let's say you have a piece of land or a stock. You can put that in the trust, sell it. There's no capital gains tax. And then you can get an income stream from that trust for the rest of your life. Now then, at death, there has to be at least some part of that trust that can be projected to go to a charitable institution. If you're wanting to be charitably inclined, you very well may want to do that. Now that's just one thing, but there are so many opportunities. So you want to begin with a comprehensive tax bracket analysis. Understand how your income is taxed in these various marginal brackets to identify optimization opportunities across all income sources and understanding fundamentally the difference in how long-term capital gains are taxed. You want to create a strategic withdrawal sequence in retirement that minimizes the lifetime tax burden while maintaining lifestyle goals. And it might make sense to pay more tax now so you can pay less tax later, especially if you're in that sweet spot between retirement age and age 73 where you don't have to take those minimum distributions from your IRAs. You could keep your tax bracket really low and be really smart about tax planning. And then, of course, doing capital gains harvesting, capital loss harvesting, systematic Roth conversion strategies, all of these things are good. So, we really want to be proactive in planning our tax planning. And I have a tax planning class in March. It's a one-night class at Pellissippi State. I'm going to go ahead and get to our next break. When we come back, I'll tell you about that class, when it is, what you can do to register, and then we're going to talk about the new rules of legacy and how taxes and how different generations think about leaving legacy for their family.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living, right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. I mentioned my class, Tax Planning and Your Retirement. Brogan Financial will be putting that on. It's a one-night class at Pellissippi State at their Hardin Valley location. It's on Tuesday, March the 25th, so a little bit over a month away, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. We'll talk about effective tax strategy. Many of these things I'm talking about, plus a whole lot more. Multiple relief packages. We'll talk about the CARES Act, our national debt, deficit spending. What's the outlook for taxes in the future? And how can you be smart about all this? So we'd love to see you there. You can go to, for more information, you can go to PellissippiTaxPlanning.com. Again, that's PellissippiTaxPlanning.com. The class is on Tuesday, March 25th, 6:30 p.m. at Hardin Valley at their Hardin Valley location. Now let's talk about estate planning and generational transfer. There are kind of some new rules of legacy. And it is very, very much generational. The greatest wealth transfer in history, $80 trillion, is going to be happening with the baby boomers. But it's not happening quite the way experts predicted it would happen. Today's wealthy families are rewriting the rules of inheritance with dramatic differences between how different generations view wealth transfer. So I want to dive into this, and let's talk about what that means for your legacy plan. You know, the approaching transfer, it's not following the traditional playbook where you save all your money, you spend minimally, you live how you want in retirement. But again, that baby boomer generation is so focused on preserving, making sure they have assets for a rainy day, for healthcare needs, things like that. And the millennials are different than baby boomers and even aging Gen Xers. So 56% of baby boomers plan, wealth transfer is not that important to them. They want to save up, and the kids will just get what's left. 97% of both millennials and Gen X plan to share wealth during their lifetime with their families, their kids, their grandkids. You know, family dynamics are evolving. Younger generations are attaching more strategic conditions to wealth transfers as well, which is interesting to me. So the younger generations are wanting to share wealth now. They also want to have more conditions on how they share wealth. And the traditional inheritance age of age 70, in other words, you live a long life, and then you die and your kids are 65 or 70, it's being challenged as families recognize the benefits of sharing wealth earlier. You know, if you think about strategically how to take it, I mean, you look at healthcare cost projections, increased longevity, reshaping how families approach wealth transfer. You know, living to 100 is no longer an edge case, but a core planning consideration. Multi-generational communication strategies have become essential. Talking to your kids and your grandkids with family meetings, early family meetings, replacing traditional scenarios where we have the reading of the will, where we get together and we find out what mom and dad wanted. You know, more and more families now are wanting to talk about these kinds of things while they're alive. And, you know, if you think about it, that's really how you can make impact with your kids. You know, if I asked you, what do you really want to transfer? You know, what's most important to you? Your life experiences, you know, the things you've learned over the years, your religious foundation, your value systems. We leave all that to our kids, right? Plus we have the money. But if you had to eliminate one of those things, what would you eliminate? I think most people would say, well, I won't leave the money. I want to leave the impact of how I taught our kids, the life experiences, the life lessons, our religious foundations, and our value systems. So, you know, we just want to be very cognizant of those kind of things, and that's why talking about it as families can be very powerful. Then there's tax-efficient transfer methods. I mentioned basic gifting strategies with the $19,000 per person gifting limit this year, and also some trust structures, and I kind of mentioned one of those with the tax long-term gain elimination trust. You also have to be considering digital asset considerations. That's added new complexity to estate planning because, you know, we needed updated documentation and access protocols for our digital footprint. We have digital assets. What happens to those when we're gone? They're out there. How can they be managed successfully? Then again, we can be very innovative in how we transfer wealth. Now, I will say this, strategic use of life insurance to create tax-efficient wealth replacement while protecting family resources can be a very, very effective wealth transfer strategy. If that is a priority and you're wanting to minimize the income tax bite for your kids. Now then, family business succession planning is incorporating, if you have a family business, it's new hybrid models that balance the control of the asset and the timing of the asset transfer. So getting more sophisticated with how we transfer the business. And then beginning with a comprehensive family wealth mapping exercise that identifies these transfer timing and methods that we really want. Now, I want to go back to the structured communication protocols that maintain family harmony, and it really can ensure clear expectations, because I don't know about you, but it seems like the one thing can make people fight the most is money. And we don't want to fight about money, so we want to have clear instructions, and we want to communicate those things, the expectations, very clearly. And then have regular review cycles that adapt to your changing family dynamics and the changing economic conditions. And develop contingency plans that protect against market volatility and unexpected life events. So the decisions you make about wealth transfer are not just financial, they're about family values, relationships, and the impact you want to have across generations. And without proper planning, you might miss critical opportunities to support your loved ones when they need it most or face unnecessary tax burdens. Whether you're considering early gifting or worried about having enough for retirement, or you're looking at important family money conversations, we're here to help you. We can help you create a balanced approach that works for everyone involved. If you'd like to have a consultation, you can come in and sit down with us. We'll provide a complimentary consultation, and we'll take the time to understand your family dynamics and explore all of your options. Now, next, I'm going to talk about charitable strategies and tax benefits and smart giving for maximum impact. And you've heard me say this before, that I think giving should be a core part of your financial plan. I'm just a big fan of it. I think we live in a society that is just becoming more and more materialistic. We're inundated with materialistic stuff in ads everywhere we look. And the problem is if the money is the goal, we'll never be happy. They asked J.D. Rockefeller how much money is enough, and he said a little bit more. Because if the goal is money, it'll never be enough. Very unhappy way to pursue things. So if you're giving, it kind of helps you get outside yourself and realize there are other causes, other people that are more needy than we are, regardless of where we are in our lives. There's people out there that are more needy than we are. And when we can make impact like that and see the impact of our dollars and see the impact of our time, our gifts of time, that's very rewarding. Oftentimes, Dee Dee and I we really get more back from those kinds of things than you could argue than the charities themselves do. Now, with our giving landscape, we have game-changing thresholds. We have a standard marital deduction of $30,000 this year. Single is $15,000. And that can help us with our strategic giving plans. We can also look at bundling strategies. Bunching our deductions. With such a higher standard deduction, at $30,000 for married and $15,000 for single, it might be you're not itemizing if you're not smart about bunching contributions. In other words, bunch more charitable contributions in one tax year, as well as, you have a choice on how you pay property tax. We've got till March 1st to pay property tax for last year, but we could have paid it in the fall. Or we could have put it off and paid it now, and then pay it again before the end of the year, and we can bunch those deductions. So, smart donors are leveraging bunching strategies to blast past those $30,000 in high deduction thresholds in targeted years. And then there's a seismic shift that's occurring in how retirees leverage qualified charitable distributions from their retirement accounts. If you're 70 and a half or older, you can give money directly to charity from your IRA. Now, the check has to be made out directly to the charity. And it's only an IRA. You can't do that out of a 401k or 403b or any other retirement account. It has to be from an IRA. But you can give over $100,000 from your IRA to charity, and it is not a taxable distribution. Think about that. If you give $10,000 from your IRA to a charity or to your church, that $10,000, if you take the $10,000 yourself, you have to pay income tax on it. But if you give it directly to the charity, you do not have to pay income tax on it. And anytime I give money or give assets to charity, I want to consider how I can make the maximum impact with the greatest tax savings. If I save taxes, I can either give more or I can give the same and keep more, right? So we just want to be smart about that. So tell you what, we're going to get to our last break, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the different kinds of money we can sometimes gift to charity and why that's important to know. And then finally, in our last segment, I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and taxes. Is it a revolution or is it risk? How do you navigate the future of tax planning? So stay with us. This is More Living right here at News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. Check us every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m., again, 3 to 4 p.m. You can also download our podcast at Spotify and Apple Podcast. You can visit my website at broganfinancial.com and listen to all my shows, dollars and cents segments, retirement minutes, all that stuff. And today we're talking about tax planning. I think it's so critically important to understand we're doing a lot of things in our lives that we could get tax benefits from if we knew how to do it. And so, you know, in that last segment, I started talking about charitable strategies. You know, and I do want to expand on that a little bit. You know, if you're giving charitably, what's the smartest way to do it? Well, when I write a check to a church or charity, I mean, I might get a deduction on it. But, you know, my checking account, my money in my checking account, I've already paid all the income tax on that money, right? So if that $100 is worth $100 to me, I give it to the charity. Now that's great, benefits the charity. If I'm not itemizing, I don't get any tax benefit from that. If I am itemizing, then I can itemize that and get a tax deduction in whatever marginal tax rate I have. But what if I give something that I haven't paid all the tax on, like my IRA? That was what I mentioned in the last segment. You know, if I have $100 in my IRA, I haven't paid income tax on that money, so it's really not worth $100 to me. But it is worth $100 to the charity, and I don't have to pay the income tax. Now, when you give it directly from the IRA, you do not get a tax deduction as well, but it's not taxable. You're giving money that would normally be taxable, and now it's not taxable. And then there's things like stocks and other assets that have grown. You know, if I have a stock that I paid $5,000 for and it's worth $10,000, if I sell it, I have to pay some capital gains tax, right, on the growth from the $5,000 to the $10,000. If I give it directly to church or charity, I don't have to pay tax on that growth, and I get the tax deduction. So you get a double whammy there. You may say, well, Jim, I don't want to sell my stock. Well, if you want to continue to own the stock, let's say you own Apple or NVIDIA, you know, been such high flyers. And you say, well, Jim, I want to continue to own NVIDIA. It took a big dive, you know, a couple of weeks ago, went down 17% or so in a day. I don't want to sell it right now. Well, but you can give it to charity and just purchase it. I mean, if I give $10,000, I can just purchase that stock, and then I can take the existing stock that I have and just gift it. And then my tax basis in that stock, instead of being $5,000, is now $10,000. So that's $5,000 worth of gain that I now moving forward don't have to pay tax on it. So again, it's creating a comprehensive giving strategy. What is the most tax efficient way to give? How can you bunch your contributions for charitable giving and for maximum tax impact with things like property taxes? How can you leverage the qualified charitable distribution and give directly from the IRA to reduce income taxes? You know, what mistakes do people make with charitable contributions that they're costing themselves? You know, when you volunteer for a charity, you can deduct the expenses that are associated with that volunteering. You got to keep very good records and write everything down, keep journals. But it's just so important to understand all those. Now, finally, I do want to talk about artificial intelligence and taxes specifically. Navigating the future of tax planning. Are we looking at a revolution or a huge risk with the advent of AI? You know, the tax world is buzzing with artificial intelligence. And I have a shocking statistic. 43% of Americans say they trust AI more than a CPA with their taxes. Isn't that remarkable? 43%. But before you hand over your financial future to a chatbot, let's explore what this technical revolution really means to your tax planning. So, what is the current state? So, as I mentioned, 2 in 5 Americans lack confidence in their ability to file taxes correctly, driving them toward automated solutions. Tax software companies have integrated AI assistance into their platforms, but the tools currently have significant limitations in handling corporate tax situations, complex tax situations, which would include corporate. Younger generations show the highest trust in AI tax solutions, with Gen Z and millennials leading the curve there on the adoption. Now, what are some of the benefits and what are some of the risks? AI systems can quickly process vast amounts of tax law changes and updates, right, which potentially reduces human error in basic calculations. Digital platforms have made tax filing more accessible and potentially less time-consuming, especially for people that have very straightforward tax situations. And AI-powered tools can help identify potential deductions and credits that may be missed through manual review. Now, by the way, a lot of that AI stuff is already incorporated in tax planning software, but you don't have, it's going to a world where you don't have the human interface with the CPA at the end, the human judgment and all those. So the risks, AI systems lack domain-specific expertise and may not understand the nuances of individual tax situations, which could lead to costly mistakes. There are tremendous security concerns around sharing sensitive financial data with AI platforms, and it's often unclear how this information is stored and used by the AI providers. The IRS may scrutinize returns prepared solely by AI tools more closely, which could potentially increase your audit risk. We don't know that, but it's something to keep in mind. So I think the way you want to be smart about this is consider using AI as a supplementary tool rather than a replacement for professional tax guidance. It's a tool. You need the human approach of professional tax guidance on the top to make sure things weren't overlooked, to make sure there's not a big mistake. Is there a complex situation that was not uncovered? So consider implementing a hybrid approach that combines technological efficiency with human expertise. And then regular review and validation of AI-generated solutions is important. You can do that with your tax professional. So I think all these things are critically important, but the intersection of AI and tax planning represents a great opportunity, but also significant risk. And without proper guidance, relying too heavily on automated solutions could maybe lead to costly mistakes that could impact your financial future. So tying all this together is what comprehensive tax planning is. And I do want to mention, what we do this time of year where we prepare our taxes for 2024, that's not tax planning. That's tax preparation. We're working with numbers that we've already generated. Our 1099s, our W-2s have already been created. There's really not a whole lot we can do to change that tax situation, save, things like giving to an IRA or Roth, or a self-employed plan if you have that option. Tax planning is looking forward and seeing how can I be efficient with what I spend now and over the long haul. Because for many of us, income taxes, are the greatest expense we'll have in our lifetime when you add them up over our entire lives. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We've discussed income taxes because If you spend less tax, you'll have more. Greater wealth provides for more living, so you can live the best years of your life your way. Many thanks to Wayne engineering the show and to Jill for helping produce the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. You've been listening to More Living with Jim Brogan, only on the News and Talk of East Tennessee, News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
The views expressed by Jim Brogan and his guests are not that of Cumulus Media. Any discussion of financial, legal, and tax planning strategies is not intended to be individualized advice and is general in nature. Always consult with your advisor for advice specific to your needs. This program's content does not represent a recommendation of any particular security, strategy, or investment by Jim Brogan or Brogan Financial Incorporated.